Hello everyone, welcome to episode 3 of Sensei David's beginner Minecraft Redstone tutorial. This is a series where we are going through all of the basic redstone concepts and showing you all how to build them. In today's video we're going to be going over pistons and all of their different uses. So the first thing you need to know about pistons is that there are two types of pistons. You probably know the two. There's a regular piston and there's a sticky piston. The main difference between these two types of pistons is that a regular piston will keep the block it has on it, while a sticky piston will kind of stick to the block that's on it, while a regular piston will not. So as you see, this will keep its block and this will not. This is the main difference between the two, but it means that for most contraptions you'll probably be using a sticky piston. While regular pistons do have their uses, the fact that it can't retain their block means that, well, sticky pistons are much more common to see in redstone contraptions. And for the rest of this video, presume I'm going to be using sticky pistons for everything, as that is what I will be using for the rest of the contraptions. Now, pistons do have a couple of limitations. For example, there are a couple blocks that it will just refuse to push. Most of these blocks are blocks you could store stuff in, like chests, or blocks with other sorts of menus like crafting tables or droppers. You can look up a list online to see a full list of blocks it won't push, but there are plenty, so be careful. Now something important to note is that there are actually two versions of Minecraft, and I am using Minecraft Java Edition. But the other version of Minecraft, which is on consoles, on your phone, and also one of the two versions on Windows, this rule doesn't necessarily apply. In Bedrock Edition, which is the other edition, you can actually push these different blocks. But in Java Edition, which all of my tutorials are in, you cannot push these blocks. Also, there are some blocks that will actually break if you try and push them. This is because, well, they have special properties so that they will break. This includes flowers and shulker boxes. So as you see, when I flip on this, oh, you can actually push crafting tables, I'm sorry. But you can't push these things that you can store items in. And these three things broke. The flower and shulker box turned into their item forms, and the cobweb got destroyed into string. Crafting tables can be pushed. I'm just correct myself from before. And so that's all for the main limitations of pistons. You can't push every block, at least in the Java version. Next up is the first contraption I'm going to show you, which is called a double piston extender. What a double piston extender is that it allows you to extend a single block out much further than you would with a normal piston. As you see with a normal piston, just like this, it's only going to extend its block just this far. But if I need that block to be over here, then you might want to use a double piston extender. A double piston extender will take this block here and it will push it out over to here, which might be helpful depending on what you're trying to do. So you see, if I turn this on, the block will be pushed all the way over here, and if I retract it, it will retract the block back to its original position. Now, as you can see the entire redstone right here. It's very simple. Into this block over here, you just put your redstone line into. Into this block, you have a repeater with 4 ticks, and into this block, you have a repeater with 2 ticks. The ticks on the repeaters are extremely important, and it will not work if you have the wrong ticks on it. Or this is because of how the contraption works. As you can see, when it extends, first this piston will extend 2 ticks after, because this repeater will put it into there. And then that'll extend to this piston, which will immediately extend because this redstone would already be on at that point. When you turn it off, the way it'll work is that first this piston will unextend, so it'll look a little something like this. Then this piston will unextend, which will push this piston back, so it'll look like this. But then this piston will start receiving redstone from this, because this repeater is still on, as it has more ticks than the other two lines. So this piston will re-extend, and then it'll re-retract, which means that the block will be pushed all the way back into its original position. So once again, you'll see it extend, and then just like that. So that's all for the double piston extender. The next thing I have is a 1-tick pulse. Now, as we saw before, you can actually extend pulses using repeaters, which I showed in the last video. But what if you wanted to shorten a pulse instead? Well, this is exactly how you could do that. This is what's known as a 1-tick pulse device, and as you will see, it will turn the button, which is a very long input, into just 1 tick. So you'll see the light flash on and flash off. Very quick, much shorter than the length of the button is. This is done because, so you'll see the button will go into a repeater, and that repeater will power this redstone line, but it will also tell this piston to extend. So the line will be powered for a quick moment, but then once the piston extends, the block will be up here then, in which case there's nothing for the repeater to send the power through, so then the light will turn off. To build this, it's quite simple. You just want a repeater here, and it has to be a sticky piston, like for most of these devices. Sticky piston here, a block on here, and then just some redstone dust, and your source and your output, and there you go. The next thing is kind of an extension on the previous system, where this is what's known as a T flip-flop. What it will do is that it will turn your button into it'll almost turn your button into a lever. What this will mean is that when you press the button once, the light will turn on, and when you press the button again, it will turn the light off. So the reason why the T flip-flop works is because of an interesting property from when you put in a 1-tick pulse, as we saw before, into a piston. As you can see, if we put a 1-tick pulse into a sticky piston, it will not retain its block. It'll kind of just throw it up there. And then when we run another 1-tick pulse, it will stick back to its block and push it down. So the way it works is that we put a 1-tick pulse into a piston, and the piston will spit out its block, and then that block will now transmit the electricity into the light. And then when we press the button again, it will take back its block, and then the electricity will no longer go through. Just like that. And just like that. Now this is really helpful for if you want a door with a button input, or if you want a door that you could control from like 2 different sources. So if we put another 1-tick pulse device right here, just like this, then you can see that this light can actually be controlled from 2 different buttons. We could use this button to turn it on, and this button to turn it off, or we could only use this button. It's really up to the user, which this fact is really helpful as it allows you to create systems where you can have like your lights turned on from multiple switches, which is really helpful because you can't just do that with normal levers. Now to build this system, you need to build the 1-tick pulse in kind of the opposite way from what we did before. So you want the repeater on this side and the redstone dust on this side. Now you could do this with any 1-tick pulse. It doesn't have to be a repeater than redstone dust. If anything, redstone dust than repeater is actually a better way to build it. And then you want this repeater to go into another sticky piston with a block on it. And then lastly, you need to put you want to put a redstone torch right here, a repeater right here, and then you can see this is where the block is going to go. So then on the other side, this will be your output line. So I'll put it into a lamp, and then as you see, turn on the light, it'll turn on, then click the button again and it will turn off, just as we built over there. The last thing I want to talk about with pistons is the ability to use slime blocks. Now, slime blocks are really helpful blocks as it lets you basically take the stickiness of your piston and almost extend it. So, because this is connected to slime blocks, as you can see, this will like push this whole entire thing. The fact that slime blocks let you do this is really cool, as it will allow you to push things further away than the piston. Now there is a limit with slime blocks, which is that slime blocks can only push 12 blocks at a time. As you can see, this whole thing will push up as it is 12 slime blocks, but as soon as we add a 13th slime block, this piston will not work. And actually, if I add like a 13th block onto this too, this will also not work. This limit is important because slime blocks will stick to anything. As you can see, I destroyed some land down here, but if I re-added the blocks, then as you can see, these slime blocks will push all of this, which means you have to be very careful when you're using slime blocks, because if you just like kind of put them in a corridor, then your whole piston won't work, because now this is way more than 12 blocks and, well, nothing will work. So you have to make sure there's room around your system so that the slime blocks will only push the right blocks, not the wrong blocks. Now you can actually use, as we learned before, a couple of these blocks don't actually get pushed by pistons. So if we take this furnace, for example, and put it next to these slime blocks, just like this, as you can see, the system will still work because the slime blocks can't push the piston anyway. Or rather, the slime blocks can't push the furnace anyway, which means that this actually makes it much easier to hide your redstone, as you can put these blocks that can't be pushed next to them, so you won't have to worry about pushing them with your slime blocks, or your sticky pistons for that matter. So that's all I have for pistons. As you can see, pistons can get very complex. There's a lot of nifty little devices like the T flip-flop and the one-tick pulse and the double piston extender. There's a whole lot to learn with pistons, and this is only scratching the surface. I didn't even get to flying machines and other ways that you can harness the powers of pistons to really do whatever you want. But this is just kind of a taste to show you a bunch of the different uses for pistons, as well as some of the different restrictions. Anyway, can't wait to see you next week. Until then, stay safe and enjoy. Goodbye.